Hello, everyone. So on March 24th, 2012, I went to the Reason Rally, and as most of you know by now, there were a group of various street preachers who came to counter-protest this and either save our wicked souls from damnation or make themselves feel good about how superior their moral system is. As you know, I engaged with some of them, including one video that got some people upset because the random person that I asked to film the conversation decided to flip the evangelist off, which was unfortunate, I suppose, but not really my fault. In any case, I apologize to my viewers because apparently some of you were upset about that. In any case, what these interactions above all else showed me is that one of our top priorities as advocates for secular humanist morality must be to take back the phrase morality from the stranglehold that theists seem to have on it in our nation. Because I am so sick of theistic, objective morality arguments that every Christian apologist seems to throw our way. They take many different forms, these arguments, mostly things like, why is murder wrong if there is no God? Or if someone hurts someone else, they're just a collection of atoms, or only with a transcendent moral lawgiver can we condone or condemn any action. There are so many logical flaws in this argument for objective theistic morality that it's hard to even know where to begin, but we might as well start with the unfounded assumptions that are made. So, unverifiable assumption number one, that the moral argument for gods actually proves that divine beings exist. The existence of deities is neither proved or evidenced by the fact that many believers think that without a god, we have no basis for solid moral judgments on issues like ethics and meaning. The argument is insidiously deceptive because, while spotlighting how subjective secular morality is, it diverts attention away from the fact that believers fail to provide any verifiable, testable evidence that their supposed transcendent moral lawgiver actually exists. This argument simply points out the fact that many believers do not want to live in a world where we are just a collection of atoms and that when we die the universe goes on, mostly indifferent. Most non-theists are fine with that, but whether we believe it or not, what we should be after is the truth of a statement, not whether it makes us feel good. You cannot position anyone or anything as a foundation for a system of thought until you've actually demonstrated that it exists. Unverifiable assumption number two, that even assuming that we can prove that some kind of transcendent lawgiver exists, that it must be the deity of whatever sect happens to be proselytizing at the time. I find that evangelical Christians do this most often, claiming that we all have general ideas of right and wrong in our conscience, that there must be some kind of moral lawgiver, and that we are all responsible to this moral lawgiver. But then they make a very subtle non sequitur of jumping from some kind of transcendent moral lawgiver to specifically the Abrahamic God, and the specific version of the Abrahamic God that their sect is promoting. How convenient that the moral lawgiver's rules just so happen to line up with their doctrines. It's amazing how quick some proselytizers can jump from the need for a moral lawgiver to the Ten Commandments or Sharia or the Gospels. It never occurs to them that the transcendent moral lawgiver might be Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, or Olorun of the Yorba, or the Great Spirit of the indigenous people of North America, or some impersonal thing like the karma cycle, or any of the other deities whose moral laws they do not pay much mind to. Or hell, what about an unknown deity who is not known by any of the world's faiths? Very few believers consider the fact that even if there is a moral lawgiver, that it might not be who they think it is, because these religious apologetics are not about considering all options or inquiry. They are about reaffirming already decided upon dogma. Unverified assumption number three, that the moral lawgiver does not itself need a superior entity to give validity to its own moral judgments. Let's assume for a second that a deity exists. Where does it get its moral validation from? If the basic assumption of this argument is true, that morality and meaning can only come from a transcendent authority, then this deity itself would need a superior authority to okay its morality and meaning. But of course, most theistic apologists don't like this. They will likely argue that their God does not need someone superior to approve its morality. It is transcendent. And that is a problem, because it not only traps their worldview in a sticky web of special pleading and an infinite regress problem that rivals the flaw in the popular first cause apologetic, it also undermines the premise of their entire argument. In a sense, they are admitting that it's possible for a morally autonomous being who can make valid moral judgments without a superior validation can exist. And if that's the case, why can't we just skip the supernatural steps and recognize that what we secular humanists claim is valid, that humanity can figure out valid morality without appealing to the supernatural? It is such a web of special pleading and logical fallacies that I don't even know how you can get through this without actually undermining the premise of your own assumption. Unverified assumption number 4, that theistic morality is in any way objective. That's a huge one. What apologists who employ this argument are saying is that while worldviews that don't invoke a god, like secular humanism, are subjective and relying on opinions, arguments from theistic morality are objective and thus more valid. Skipping the fact that they still haven't demonstrated that whatever deity they're advocating is the moral lawgiver, or even that their god exists, or a god exists, the fact that they are claiming that morality isn't mind-independent undermines the idea that it is objective. The very word objective in philosophy means something that does not come from a mind. Like I told some of the open-air preachers at the rally, if you are claiming that divine fiat or command is the source of morality, then it is subjective morality. And again, as I said at the rally, and I believe in the past on this channel as well, the fact that this alleged objective morality does not manifest itself in a way that can be differentiated from opinions that can be arrived at by non-supernatural human reasoning, prejudice, and superstition gives us more than enough grounds to be skeptical that these apologists are actually speaking on behalf of the supreme authority of the universe. Unverified assumption number 5, that we can differentiate between the different allegedly divine moral lawgivers that various people throughout human history have claimed exist. One thing that irks me is the fact that people who argue for this apologetic completely disregard the totally legitimate point that atheists and skeptics have made about inconsistent revelation. There are literally thousands of religions all over the world, each claiming to have capital T truth on their side, and many of them are in violent opposition to one another. Now, religious apologists have legitimized both, on one hand, the idea that faith is a legit tool of inquiry and a path to truth, and on the other hand, the idea of the divine command justification apologetic. So we find ourselves in an epistemological nightmare, and I can illustrate this very easily. Suppose someone were to say, I believe that the supreme, inaudible, invisible, intangible moral authorities of the universe are the gods of old Mesoamerica, and it is their will that I begin abducting and sacrificing people so that I may rip out their hearts. But then on the other hand, a Universalist member of the Society of Friends, more commonly known as the Quakers, says, wait, the universal, transcendent, inaudible, invisible, intangible moral lawgiver manifests the inner light in all of us and says that it is wrong to capture, murder, and rip out the hearts of your fellow human beings. It wants us all to live in peace with each other and harmony. So since we've legitimized both faith, an epistemological method that shields itself from inquiry, and divine command, which says that anything the moral lawgiver agrees with automatically becomes moral, which one of them do we say is valid? The whole thing reduces back to a situation that looks pretty much indistinguishable from a situation where moral law-giving deities don't exist and human morality is subjective. And that itself reduces back to the point that we will agree with, or maybe not agree with, but allow the worldview that promotes well-being and does not overtly do massive harm to the society. As far as I can tell, any dialogue about right and wrong can only happen if one assumes a communal setting in which the well-being of the community is the goal. I can't think of any other context in which the words right and wrong could even have any meaning at all if we are not talking about how to maximize well-being of those within society while reducing or eliminating harm, which is what secular humanists and many other atheist ethicists have been arguing the whole freaking time. We've just skipped the absurd, unfounded, superstitious steps to get there. There is a reason why, in a healthy society, the pacifist Quakers and their unprovable claims about the inner light are, if not supported, then tolerated, while the apocalyptic, destructive, unprovable claims about the Mesoamerican gods, or hell, the Muslim terrorists, to be more contemporary, are not tolerated. So those are just 5 problems with this argument from allegedly objective theistic morality, and I'm sure we could find a bunch of others. But what I'm getting at is that the only sound gauge we have to measure pretty much any definition of good and evil, in a practical sense, is whether something causes unnecessary harm or whether it promotes well-being. These kinds of arguments in favor of obedience to allegedly divine commands don't give us morality in any kind of sense of a rational, measured, evaluated system of thought. They give us systems of unquestioning obedience, not anything that can pass as a path to truth. The entire purpose of morality and the rules in society that we have are to ensure that we mixture of atoms and chemicals can live as harmoniously as possible in a community. As far as we can tell, however, words like morality, ethics, right, and wrong cannot have any meaning outside of that context of a society trying to better itself. Thanks for listening, Answer the questions by questioning the answers later.